were two parties who influenced me to make the speech. The first one was myself, because I think that it would have been a betrayal of character were I not to make that speech. Because I knew firsthand the pain that was experienced by depression sufferers, and I knew that I wouldn't let myself graduate from the college without having said words to remedy that. The second party was mentors, so my teachers, my good friends and my parents who questioned my motives but ultimately encouraged me to do something that I really wanted. I think that I've been put in a unique and privileged position that people are now watching what I have to say on the issue. So I think that that gives me an obligation almost to connect the complex world of policy with the also complex world of youth mental health issues. And I think that I plan to be a constant source of commentary on social discourse surrounding mental health. Someone who can make policymakers realise that depression and other mental health illnesses are conditions that make its sufferers irrational in many respects. And so your typical rational responses of things like just get over it don't really apply to something which is an illogical condition in itself. So I think that my job largely revolves around making people very aware of that from the position of someone with a lived experience. I think that all policy in the mental health sphere should be aimed at changing the paradigm that suffering in silence is the norm. So I think that the way that that is best achieved is by cooperating with the consumer to find out what they actually need and actually want, because it's the sufferers who know best what they need, and they're the people who need to be consulted when you construct services around them. I also think that youth have a lot of shame in terms of accessing services within school. So programs like Mind Matters and Kids Matters need to be separated from the school and linked in with services like they currently aren't. So I think it's really important that we always link consultation and counselling with direct action afterwards. I think that understanding what your passions are is really helpful in being able to balance the natural stresses of life with what you love and what makes you happy. So for me, that was things like listening to lots of music, travel, learning languages, healthy relationships and so forth. I think that for me, things like listening to music which agreed with my mood and validated my mood rather than masked it with some sort of fake emotion was what really helped me to sort of distill my feelings into a sort of oral simulacrum. It really validated that what I was feeling was okay and that what I was feeling was normal. And I think that if each person can find that specific outlet which works to do the same thing for them, then we'll all live more positive lives. I think that on a local level, the response to my speech was, I know at my school in particular, a huge surge in counselling rates, which was a huge success, a personal success for me and a wider success for the school. We immediately saw more children going to access the services that they need, and more children who didn't realise that they had depression or anxiety acknowledging that they do and taking appropriate steps to go to solve the issue. The other response that I saw on a wider level was, as the video started to go viral, I thought that that was a real testament to the fact that society was almost bursting at the seams for someone to say what had been said. I don't think it would have mattered who took the microphone. I think it just mattered that someone said, what was once a taboo issue in social discourse, I think is quickly becoming part of a constant dialogue. So my school organised a whole mental health awareness day around the speech. So there was a day called Men for Others Day, we called it, which linked in with the ethos that our school was based on. And what that day entailed was not only the speech was the keynote address of it, but it also entailed, as soon as the speech was finished, everyone put on a jersey of their favourite team or their favourite band to symbolise the sort of diversity that everyone can like, whatever they want individually, and they ought not to feel judged by that. And then after this speech, we all went back to mentor groups of about 10 boys in each group. The counselling team had constructed a leaflet which explained to the teacher leading the group the path to take with their questioning, and we led every boy through a reflection of whether they've ever felt similar ways or whether they've ever seen friends in similar situations, which really helped to bring the boys out of the dark who had been suffering for so long into the light so that they could be helped. I think that creating a dedicated mental health awareness day is important in raising its status as an issue to the same level as so many other issues which are contentious in schools. I think that that's one thing that schools can do. I think another one is supporting a more personable and well-known profile of the counselling team. They need to be very much humanised. People need to know the faces of the counsellors and their names off by heart. They need to be real people who you can go to see, and not a hazy doctor figure who you would only contact in an emergency. And I think that finally linking mental health education in with physical health education is really important in lowering the stigma of mental illness. Because I think that if we can make kids realise that taking an antidepressant when you have depression is the same thing as taking Panadol when you have a headache, or putting on a cast when you have a broken arm. If we can link those two forms of education together in the first place, I don't think that we'll ever need to overcome that challenge. First step I took in discussing my mental health concerns largely wasn't my own choice. It was actually a breakdown to my parents after an episode of not wanting to live anymore. And it was a sudden realization that what I was feeling inside was very real, and that something needed to be done. So it was at the point at which I cried to my parents and reached out for help there that I ever got any attention in the first place. And then following that, in my older years, it was rushed emails to counsellors when it was far too late. So I think that something that you could learn from my experience is jumping to support earlier, because there's no shame in doing so, and it's only going to be beneficial. Things which really interest me about Aftercare. The first one being the sheer magnitude of the organisation. With over 50 programs helping over 5,000 people and 455 staff from Cairns right through to the Margaret River, I think that it's an organisation which really does deliver tangible benefits to its consumers. The second thing that interests me about the organisation is its programs such as its residential support and its employment programs, which really helps to integrate people who are socially isolated into society, which I think is one of the most helpful things in helping them to overcome their mental illness and to feel more normal and more welcomed in society. And I think that the third one, and probably the most important thing about that makes Aftercare unique, is its personable feel amongst its staff and its consumers. I think that when people work with Aftercare, they feel very much welcomed and they feel as a part of a second family, which is distinctly different from feeling like you're working with a bunch of psychiatrists sitting around a table in a boardroom. And I think that that's something that's unique about Aftercare, and which ensures that people who work closely with them are always going to be accessing some of the best help.